Hey, in a lot of these videos, I respond to some of the comments and questions that appear in the previous videos. And this one had a very interesting question. He asked me, how did we know, or when did you find out, when you mentioned that the three largest pyramids in Egypt were built before the Noahic flood, the days of Noah. How do I know that there were pyramids that were built before the flood? There's a big difference between the ones that were built before the flood and the ones that were after the flood in that region, because some of them were built by the Egyptians and some of them were built by a culture or a civilization before the flood. A whole book could be filled with data on the age of the three greater pyramids, the huge ones, and how they differ in age and construction from the vastly inferior pyramids constructed post-flood. We're talking about the flood of Noah. We know when the Great Flood occurred. It was what we call 1656, or 1656 years, Anno Mundi. That means the year of the world, since the creation. We know when it happened. We know when the flood happened. This was about 4,369 years ago. The oldest trees still alive today date to some years following this time period, 4,369 years ago. They're still growing like teenagers. This great Noahic flood was global in scope. Don't let anyone fool you. There are fossils at the tops of the highest mountains, as if there's evidence, physical evidence, that the floodwaters reached those heights. Archaeology, as we know it, these studies called archaeology, are still in their infancy, having their beginnings in the late 18th century. And they go on to the present day. The study of Egyptology established a timeline that has been used as a baseline for all world events. But this baseline has been turned on its head in recent years, because it was assumed that there was a uniformitarian time period applied to all things on earth. And it assumed that the pharaohs reigned sequentially, one after the other. The pharaohs, or the pharaohs, is actually the real word. Based on early estimates and faulty assumptions, we know that as many as 12 pharaohs were reigning concurrently. In other words, they were like little sectors, or little, there would be like as many as 12 or more pharaohs reigning in their little fiefdoms, little kingdoms. And this throws the historical record into turmoil. The known height of the Great Flood, combined with the crustacean fossils that are still at the same time and the same level, both inside and outside these greater pyramids, are all at the same level. In other words, these great pyramids, these three great pyramids, have crustacean fossils at the same levels inside and outside these pyramids as the floodwaters were receding. And they reveal several obvious conclusions. Since all flesh with the breath of life perished in the great flood, all flesh perished with the breath of life in it in the great flood. Some civilization had to have been there to build them prior to the flood. And it was not the Egyptians. The Egyptians just copied what they saw. the people that were in that region that landed there. So they were just copying, and it shows, because they don't have anything like the design and construction and age of those pyramids. They don't have the quality of the construction. Even the great discovery of the pyramid of Saqqara, the step pyramid, which is assumed to be the oldest pyramid, is really inferior. It's not designed very well. They just copied what they saw in these gigantic pyramids. Anyway, the history is written by people with an agenda, and they're conquerors. They write the histories. And we're ruled by the lowest of men, and those who teach us are leading us into confusion. That's what Scripture tells us. Scripture is leading, the leaders are leading us into confusion. It's important to understand this. This is how I know from my studies that the great 3 pyramids that we see in Mitzrayim were not built by the Egyptians, but they're imitated, and that this evidence that they were there is in the fossil record. Pick up the book Fossilized Customs, and that'll show you some things too, because everything that the world is being taught and has been taught is based on lies. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.